I think he's a total spoofer. What you mean a spoofer? This is bullshit.
Wolves coming back from an offside position, but Shane Long was definitely onside. Shane Long has done it!
I'm going to enjoy tonight.
And you should as well.
Thanks very much.
Well done.
But
unless he's breastfeeding, he should be alright.
It's always important to start the new year as you mean to go on, and Troy Parrott certainly did that last night with a hat-trick against a Czech goalkeeper, no less. Maybe sights that we will be seeing soon, in about 70 days' time.
And a Czech goalkeeper and a former St. Patrick's Athletic goalkeeper.
Yeah, St. Patrick's Athletic goalkeeper as well. Welcome to the Ireland Radar podcast, live radio show as well. We do a bit of everything around here on Flirt FM 101.3 FM. We are back after the winter break, and you might notice we are in a different day. If you were expecting a Kerry man by the name of Conor Coventry to be taking this show, be disappointed. He's left you for Miami, so we're taking over the temporary slot for today. The Ireland Radar, it's going to be coming to you this year, or this semester really. It's going to be Tuesdays from 2 to 3 instead of the Mondays 3 to 4 o'clock. We change stuff around, a bit of scheduling issues, but we're back. We're back for the foreseeable few months, and a good thing is we've got plenty to talk about. I think the next couple of months is just going to be trying to keep our excitement going all the way up until March. We're going to be building towards then, starting from today, where we have conversations about what's coming up, and I think that's probably going to surround much of the discourse. Of course, there's loads of stuff to talk about. Obviously, I've already told you about the slot. On today's show, we're going to be hearing from the Ealing Road podcast Michael Johnston, not the same Michael Johnston that plays for Ireland, of course, but he tells us all about Sir Keith Andrews and how he's getting on at Brentford. They are flying it at the moment. We're also going to hear about Caoimhin Kelleher and Nathan Collins. He's coming up in about 20 minutes or so. We'll talk about him. But last time we were on air, Celtic had just thanked Martin O'Neill for staying the ship and brought in a new but highly rated young manager in Wilfred Nancy. James, how's that gone at Celtic?
Yeah, well, O'Neill steadied the ship, and the ship is now on fire, and Martin O'Neill is back at the wheel. So the more things change, the more they stay the same, and Celtic are kind of back at square one. I don't want to talk about it too much because the club is the club is an absolute basket case. So much division with the fans and the board, and 15 days into January, myself and a lot of fans would have thought that the way we are in the league, like Dermot Desmond would have seen that and been like, okay, let's get the checkbook out. But 15 days into January, not one signing, one on loan. Araujo from Bournemouth, right back, good player to be fair, but still no money spent. Hearts have signed I think like 3 players, obviously using the Jamestown analytics, which we'll touch on further, with an Irish club using Jamestown now as well later in the show. But yeah, it's not looking good at the minute, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
It's very much like an unprecedented situation at Celtic, or for much of maybe at least for our lifetimes, that we've not seen. I know it's like there's been a level of mess, but kind of masked by success. But now it's just
yeah. I think I've touched on this before. Like from the outside looking in, you'd probably, I'm sure, like a lot of Irish fans would have seen what happened at the AGM a couple of months back, and the reception the board received, Ross Desmond's statement, Dermot Desmond's son, and he pretty much just lambasted the fans, literally put petrol on the fire, and create even more division. And they probably would have seen that and been like, maybe they side with Celtic fans, but at the same time they would have been like, Celtic fans are, maybe they're a bit spoiled, a bit privileged in the success we've had, but like the division goes a lot deeper than that, and with how bad Rangers have been over the last decade, with how bad the league's been in general, is kind of masked how badly run we really are, and a lot of things have kind of came into fruition this season, which has just kind of shown what, like, how badly run we are. Like obviously Hearts with Jamestown, but Rangers taken over by the 49ers. Motherwell and Hibs are doing really well this year, so 2 very good managers, and yeah, it's for Scottish football it's great because it's much more competitive, but for Celtic it's obviously not so great.
Yeah, that AGM that you talked about was almost like comical. I don't know if you've ever watched Succession. I absolutely love the show, but it was almost like something like that, where like Greg Roy or something was just making an absolute idiot of himself. Like it just,
he actually sounded quite like Leo Varadkar in his statement.
It was just somebody in a position he should never have been in. But anyways, we'll move on. This is not a Celtic podcast, of course. There's plenty of places you can go for that, some of which James is involved with too. But let's I think the big elephant in the room, it's kind of hard making the docket for this week's show because we have been off since something like the 16th of December. There's been the big break, and so it's kind of hard to know what topics to talk about. But I mean, we are coming into 2026, and I'm really excited to record the show again as we are, because I feel like we're just focusing all of our attention towards March in 2026. I feel like every conversation around the Ireland at the moment is going to be centred around that. There is still already a buzz about it, but there is an elephant in the room. It's Josh Cullen's picking up an ACL injury in what already was a light midfield, and I feel like this is going to be the big question hanging over into this. When it goes up to the squad announcements and stuff, is who's going to replace Cullen, because we haven't really seen him outside of the team since he became a mainstay under Kenny in 2021, and it's a discussion we've had, but we don't actually have another profile of player, or at least if we do have another similar profile player, they've definitely not been made senior caps for Ireland yet.
Yeah, I think we'll come on to the number of options we do have there, despite maybe how we've talked about the midfield problem a lot and the lack of quality options, but we do have a lot of options down on the docket, which we will touch on. But I suppose the safe bets, Jack Taylor, who obviously played a part in the Hungary game, 13 starts in the Championship, does play in a kind of a two-man midfield for Ipswich. Probably, is the safe choice ultimately, more experienced than some of the ones we will touch on, but again, not he's not starting week in, week out for Ipswich. I think he's third choice really in midfield. After I think Caoimhin and some other French guy in midfield for them. So, do we want to be bringing in a guy that isn't starting regularly into our biggest game in years? I don't really know. Probably not. Especially given there's probably very little between Taylor and some of the options we'll touch on in a bit.
We do have a list of 11 names, and I will spoil it. There is a caveat around every single name. It's it could be this person, but there's not one person who we feel like is nailed on. Now I feel like maybe we'll do this discussion, we probably have the feeling that we'll agree on at least one or two of the players who it should be. But I think first of all it should be to say that it's so unfortunate for Josh Cullen, because I remember a year or two ago when Burnley had the disaster season under Company a few years ago, when they were just so certain to get relegated and eventually did. A lot of the discourse, and I mean it truly did look like it, that Josh Cullen wasn't a Premier League player, and he's come back from that, and he's had a good Premier League season. He looks every bit a Premier League player, and even his performances for Ireland in the recent, obviously the two big games that we had with Portugal and Hungary, he was absolutely brilliant, and he's maybe at the finest point of his career at the moment, playing his best football, and for this injury to come when he's such an important part of the team. And at the same time, it also means we have to listen to Collins in midfield debate again, which nobody wants to listen to. But yeah, I don't know. Should we go through the list? Do you want to start by saying, do we want to go with the outsiders first, or do we want to just spoil it and say who we think it should be?
We just go along the docket. I think Jason Knight next up, someone who obviously has been one of our most important players really since Stephen Kenny came in. Has never
very experienced
player despite being so young, in particular in club football. I think it was last year he played every minute for Bristol City in the Championship.
Almost for 2 years running, I think he's done it. Yeah.
And then finally that caught up to his legs this season with his injury. He obviously missed the 2 games in October and then the 2 games in November as well. Since that, he's 7 starts in his last 8, so he's just firmly went right back into that Bristol City setup. Very important player for him. In terms of the profile player you're getting with Jason Knight, we obviously know what Jason is. He's a very positive player, all action midfielder, box to box player, loves to get forward, lots of energy and stuff. And is he the profile that we want to replace Josh Cullen with? Probably not.
I don't think so. I think I know well that both myself and yourself rate Jason Knight very highly, and it's no slant on him, but I think both of us would be quite disappointed to see him in that role. I think we were only having the conversation over a pint the last day that we think Jason Knight is a very fine midfielder. It's just that he looks much better in a 3, maybe as more of an attacking 8, not so much a 10, but attacking 8. Then the position and discipline you have to play in the 2, and it's not even the second man in the 2, which we're expecting Malumbi will be the second option. We need a sitter, and I think it's the farthest thing that Jason Knight is good of. For despite him being a very good midfielder, he's not the profile of player that I would personally like to see playing in this.
Yeah, I think well, there's a consensus among ourselves that are, and maybe even probably Irish fans that have watched like all of the Jason Knight's games in Ireland jersey, that like he probably can start alongside Malumbi in a two just because of how aggressive he is, and at times he does like step outside the pressing structure, or he just is a bit naive in terms of his kind of defensive responsibilities. But like in saying that, like it's difficult really like to see what part he will play in March, just because obviously he missed the last 4 games, is it? And just like how important he's been over the last few years, and like he's delivered some of the best performances I've seen from an Irish player. Like in particular, I'm obviously a seasoning holder, so like from my perspective, from the games at the Aviva, like the France game, I remember Jason Knight was outstanding against like Caoimhin, I think it was Tchouameni, Griezmann was playing. Like it was like a really outstanding performance against like world class opposition. So from my perspective, like he's probably someone that has to play a part in March, but given our like the 2 results in November, given he missed the last 4 games, like where he fits in is kind of the question, and it'll be interesting to see. Like
he should be in the team, Jason. It's just I wouldn't have him as the 6. Like if something was to happen to Malumbi, that's where you'd want him to play maybe. But I think the other option, I think the main 2, we'll get on to those 2 that are being touted, and I think if we had to give the Ireland radar seal of approval to 2 midfielders in particular, I think the options are going to be Bosun Lawal and Conor Coventry. And the interesting thing about both these midfielders is that they have the caveats of Lawal's never started a game for Ireland, which I think, or played a game for Ireland in the senior team, which I think is a shame. I think they really messed up by not capping him when he's been in the squads. There's been a couple of games where it's quite confusing why he hasn't been capped yet, but I think that's maybe another conversation for another day. And the whole thing with him being centre back for club, I think, makes things confusing. Well, I think the biggest thing that you give against Conor Coventry, despite his, like, he's a very similar profile to Cullen even by just his stature, but he's only played 30 minutes in an Ireland shirt, which is, if he was to go with someone else like Taylor, which I actually expect him to go with, it's going to be because of experience playing in an Ireland shirt. But do you want to run through what your kind of submissions for both those midfielders would be?
Yes, obviously Bosun, someone who has been kind of hailed the messiah on Irish football Twitter.
Mainly by yourself, maybe.
Mainly by myself. I'm kind of pushing
and
that.
Other members of the Ireland Radar alumni probably as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to push that agenda. But like in terms of our midfield options, I know he's playing centre half for Stoke, but like he is like just offers a profile that we just don't have. Like obviously that big physical stature, monster midfield. Like if anyone remembers his spell at Fleetwood on loan from Celtic a couple of years ago, he was unbelievable in League One. Honestly, if Fleetwood hadn't gone down, like he should have, I don't know if he was, but he should have been up for like League One Player of the Year because he was outstanding. Obviously at Stoke now, got that move in the summer, or not last summer, the summer before, and kind of hamstring injury was kind of stopped his momentum. He started Stoke's first 8 games, and then since his return, like he's kind of stepped out of centre back. He's played midfield 3 times, full back 3 times, so right back and left back, and he's played twice as centre half. And this is kind of discussion about Bosun is like, where is his best position? I listened actually to the official Stoke City podcast, actually very good. I've listened to a couple of times now with Bosun and with their interview with Andrew Moran, and he even said himself, like when he was at Celtic at Darren O'Dea, he was always begging Darren to put him in midfield. The interviewer on the Stoke City podcast actually asked him like, what is your best position, and Bosun was like, I'm kind of sick of hearing that question over and over. Yeah, and I think eventually he just said centre half, probably just to kind of give an answer.
Was it midfield he was playing for Fleetwood, or was it centre half? Because did the midfield thing come from an underage Ireland? Like, is his experience in midfield mainly coming from underage in Ireland, or did he play midfield at club level at any stage?
So he always played at centre half. Every under 21 match I've watched, Bosun has played centre half. At Celtic, he was kind of put back to centre back by Darren O'Dea. The quote actually Darren O'Dea said, which is said in the podcast, is you're either going to be a £10 million midfielder or a £30 million centre half. So that was his opinion on Bosun. But for me, from the games I watched of like his time in the Celtic B team, like Bosun, when he played at centre half, he did have like that kind of concentration moment, like lack of concentration moment or a mistake in him at centre half. That's why I always said I think he should be a midfielder, just because he gets that more license to drive forward.
And importantly, when we're having this debate, it's completely different than the Collins debate. Like, this is an actual hybrid centre mid, centre back profile. This is not someone that it's like, do you want to fancy playing him in midfield like Collins because you think his skill set might match up to it? This is someone who does have experience playing in midfield.
I think he is a midfielder. Like from like, if you look at his spell at Fleetwood, so like I think it was 3 managers in charge of Fleetwood. It was Scott Brown originally, so that's why he brought Bosun there. Obviously the Celtic links. He was sacked literally a couple of weeks into his time at Fleetwood. Lee Johnson was brought in, horrific football manager if anyone has heard of him, shocking. And then Charlie Adam came in, so obviously great midfielder back in his day, and he basically changed Bosun to midfield, and like Bosun was unbelievable the rest of the season. Charlie Adam was singing his praises every week, and that obviously led to the Stoke move, and we're at a stage now where he's playing centre back for Stoke. Stoke are pushing for the playoffs. I think they're doing quite well.
They're 7th place in the league, I think, at the moment. They're doing quite decently well. Would he be your choice then? Like, if you had to say it right now, would he be your choice if you had to make a decision?
Yeah, I think I think whoever you're going to put in there hasn't really started many games in Ireland jersey. Like Jack Taylor, I don't know how many games has he started for us.
You see, the thing is, he's made a lot of appearances off the bench, and he's been involved in pretty much all of Heimer's squads. I think that's what he would be. Now,
for me, I'm obviously not a football manager, and I'm probably not as pragmatic as Heimer, and maybe that's a bad thing. But my pick would probably be Bosun Lawal, just based off the profile he has, like the physicality. Czech Republic are going to have midfield with Suchek. They're a very big physical team, and if we have Jason Lumley's obviously very aggressive, he's physical, but if we don't have that physical presence to match them, I just feel like that could be something that maybe.
Yeah, and it's about time he's been involved in the squad. I think they did make a mistake, and obviously it's easy to say, but like, of course, because he's had injuries and stuff that's kept him out of squads too, but they've made a mistake by not involving him more further, because at some stage you got to know that these midfielders can't play every single game at the international level. So I think they've kind of shot themselves in the foot with this whole Cullen thing, because there hasn't really been an attempt to see like what happens when Cullen doesn't play. But then also, like, in the last year we've had nothing but competitive games to play, so I don't know if there's been much time for experimentation. Obviously, I alluded to it earlier, I think for me, like, I'd be very happy to see Lawal play, as a sounded out there. But I think for me, the obvious choice is Conor Coventry, because he started the most minutes out of any Irish player that's playing in the Championship this season. I think he's starting in almost all of Charlton's games. From what I hear from Charlton fans and from what I read, that he seems to be one of the best players for Charlton. I know they're not doing great in the Championship. They're in 19th at the moment, but you know, the Championship is such a competitive level. He's clearly quite experienced in English football, playing like in League One for years, and then this. And he's also, like, I know he's only played 30 minutes against Portugal, but he's been involved in Ireland squads for quite a while now. You know, there was 2 or 3 camps that he hasn't made an appearance. I think he's been around the scene since 2021. Really,
yeah, he was. Well, he was. I think he's one of the most. I think he's our most capped under 21 player. Like, he was around for the 21s for years. But like, he was even in Ireland squads in League One. I think that was maybe what was stopping Conor from getting in, or maybe even getting minutes, just because the level he's playing at. Like, you can compare to our other midfield options at the time, Alan Brown maybe, who were playing Championship football. So that's probably why you kind of didn't really get a look in. Yeah,
and look, I think he is the right choice, because I've been nothing but impressed with him whenever I have seen him play. Even like his cameo against Portugal, I think he did quite well for himself. And I think the fact that he's coming on in a game like that shows that there is at least that bit of fate in him, especially because Cullen's not a player that gets replaced very often. I don't know if he did it in that game, but if you're adding more steel to midfield and he chose to go with Conor Coventry, I feel like he will go with him.
He's also playing, like, if you look at the argument, obviously, against Lawal would be, well, it depends, like, in the next 3 months where he's going to be playing. Most likely probably going to be centre back, given the amount of minutes he's played there this season. But like, what system is he playing in at club level? Can he just seamlessly go into that Ireland team and do his role and know his role perfectly? Like, maybe not. That could be the argument against him. But then you look at Conor Coventry, he's playing as that 6 in a 3-5-2. It's literally our exact setup. He's played 20 minutes against Portugal. He's been in the camp numerous times. And there actually is some very funny parallels to Josh Cullen in that they both came up through West Ham. Conor Coventry's on loan at Charlton right now. Josh Cullen was out on loan at Charlton when he was younger as well.
They also look so similar.
Yeah,
like, it's quite uncanny.
Like, yeah, the similarities are pretty mental.
I think you can put him out there and just tell the rest of the team that it's Josh Cullen, and they will, like.
I think Coventry's like 5'11", so he's like a couple of inches taller, but
he's wearing stilts, like, he'd be alright.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we'll just run through the rest of the names. But for me, that's my choice. Will be Conor Coventry. I think he's probably going to go with one of the more experienced names like Jack Taylor. I don't think he'd be right in doing that.
I think right now those four are probably the only ones in contention. I think the rest of these outsiders are just like there's 3 months to the game.
Yeah,
maybe some of these guys go on really good runs of form, or there's even more further injuries which could obviously happen. I'm
going to run through them so quickly because we're tight for time today because of this interview that we have coming up in a couple of minutes. But the other names would be John Joe Patrick Finn. That's not happening. Like he's not really done anything since he been called up for the Ireland squad. The word is that they weren't really impressed with how they think he can step up to the game, and he's only played 190 minutes of football since then. Luca Connell is someone we're really impressed with at the moment. I think he's been featured on our under the radar a fair bit.
Should get a move to Championship really.
Yeah, I think he's going to be getting closer and closer to Ireland squads in the next year or two, and I don't be surprised if he's involved in the future, but maybe not one right for now. Joe Hodge, I think he's on Jaime Hallgrimsson's radar, but I mean he's near the bottom of the table in Portugal. I think if Shamrock Rovers shown that the scraping the bottom of that table is the Portuguese division gets very, very weak down the bottom, and he's struggling for moves at a team that's one place from last.
I think it's just the one thing for Hodge is that he's just playing regular minutes because he was obviously at Wolves for a number of years, and Wolves kind of kept him around as a fringe player, just playing cup games, and if the best for his career is to play first team football because he's a very good footballer. Yeah.
Will Smallbone injured. It looks like he's going to be battling for fitness at the time. Wouldn't be surprised if he's in the squad, but he's not really the profile of player to play there, as is Killian Phillips, but I think he's been maybe made a rod a bit after the Yerevan game. I think there was quite a lot of blame placed on him, I think, in that game. I don't think he looked like good enough in.
Yeah, good.
It's a bit harsh in a game or two, but he kind of did look a level below a lot of the other players.
Yeah, he's having a very good season at St Mirren, but like St Mirren are very much like chaos ball there. Phillips kind of has license to drive forward, get into the box. He's more of like despite like what you might think of him like as a big tall kind of centre mid, he's not really a defensive mid. He's more of kind of like a box to box guy who's going to get in the box, score goals.
Yeah,
and that's not really what that role
if these
we're
big,
replacing Cullen
tall,
for.
Like strong fellas we had didn't like getting forward as much, we might have a good defensive midfielder.
Yeah, I think Phillips is just more of a forward thinking player.
Other names, Alan Brown hasn't been in an Ireland squad since 2024.
That's Sunderland, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's doing alright there. It's Middlesbrough. He's at Middlesbrough.
Oh yeah, he moved.
He was in the infamous kind of squad, Heimer's first squad that Heimer didn't actually pick, but hasn't been involved since then. But he's playing regular minutes in the Championship. Be interesting to see does he become involved again. As could his teamer Alex Gilbert. He's playing also regularly enough for Middlesbrough.
Was he left winger? Is he?
He's a left mid, centre mid kind of player. But I think also again another player that would be maybe featured as further forward or player in the midfield three. I don't think any of those are going to be in the two. But I think what we're saying is, if it wasn't for the caveats around Coventry and Lawal that they haven't been featured much for Ireland, this wouldn't be as big of a deal as it seems, but the inexperience might be causing a bit of an issue.
Yeah, and in particular, if you've seen Heimer's leaning on John Egan and Seamus Coleman, bringing them back into the camp, pretty much, they're obviously two very good players, but like one of the main reasons was experience, so you'd imagine going into one of our biggest games in a decade, like he's going to be relying on the more experienced options. Despite, if I was him, I'd pick Bosun Lawal, but I'm not Jaime Hallgrimsson, so
that's one to keep an eye on the next couple of months. We said 70 days until the big game.
Are we starting a countdown?
Yeah, countdown. We'll say it every week. I think that's like a thing to get us more forward to it. What you do have to look forward now is the chat that I had just a couple of days ago with Michael Johnston of the Ealing Road podcast. It is a Brentford fan TV podcast, and he told us all about Keith Andrews. I'm going to have that coming up for you next.
Really, it's a fairy tale. You can't even dream about something like that. I honestly have no words to describe the emotions right now.
Well, a nation thanks you.
That's Troy Parrott. That is unbelievable. He scored a hat-trick. They've made the unbelievable come to pass. They were out of contention.
To go down in the game twice and then to come back like that is it's beautiful.
As I said, I had faith in this team. There's two people that have come into this camp recently, and that's Seamus Coleman and John Egan. And what they've put into the team and the energy they've given and the belief and faith they put back into us from when we were so down, it's unbelievable. Credit to them. And listen, this team is special. I said it.
Back-to-back games against all odds. Hallgrimsson's heroes. Young players growing, believing.
I'm joined here by Michael Johnston from the Ealing Road podcast. It's a pleasure to be joined by you, Michael. How are you doing today?
Yes, I'm good, Dylan. How are you, mate?
Oh, very good, yeah. Very good to be joined by you. Obviously, Brentford are doing very good as well. I mean, I definitely didn't expect at the start of the season when Keith Andrews came in, but they're sitting 5th place in the league, I believe, at the moment, just 1 or 2 points outside of the top 4. Can you really believe what's going on since he's come in? I know the league is a bit of a mess points-wise, but it was hardly the expectations coming into the season, was it?
No, it was. I think everyone's surprised about how well we're doing. And like you say, the table is very tight, like a couple of wins, a couple of losses here and there, and everything can move. I think over the festive period, we started in like 15th. We're now up to 5th after taking 4 out of 5 wins. But yeah, I mean, in terms of what we expected going into the season, I mean, the outside noise was that it felt like, you know, Keith Andrews, we've lost Thomas Frank, we've lost Christian Norgard, Brian Mbeumo, Johan Wissa, Mark Flecken. It felt like we were dead certs for relegation, at least in some corners.
I think definitely predicted the same, by the way. We did a predictions article at the start of the season, and I said along the lines that Brentford are very smartly run, but even I couldn't imagine the thinking behind this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair enough. It's understandable. I do think there were, you know, certain circles of Brentford fans that, you know, trusted the people that made this decision in Phil Giles, the director of football, Matthew Benham, the owner, Lee Dykes, the technical director. They rarely get these kinds of decisions wrong, and Brentford have history of losing managers, losing key players, whether that be Mark Warburton, Uwe Rosler, going back even further, whether that's Dean Smith or now Thomas Frank. We always have a way of getting better, which sounds weird to say, especially because in this summer of change there was so much of it. I didn't think we would be better. I thought there would be a drop off, but I mean, if you're looking at the league table, then it kind of looks like we're better. So, yeah, I mean, Keith Andrews doing an incredible job. Long may it continue. 5th in the table, doesn't it?
Yeah, and part of that is, like you said, that like of Thomas Frank was a manager who was there for so long, and when Kelleher was coming into Brentford, I spoke to the Anfield Rap's Neil Atkinson, and he said a worry that he'd have for Kelleher's future career was that if Frank was to leave, it's not only that you have an inexperienced manager coming in, but you've got Thomas Frank, who's been there, who was almost like a part of the furniture, you could say, and also you've lost something like 60% of your goal output. How did Andrews really combat that, especially with, it wasn't a huge transfer window for Brentford either?
No, it wasn't a huge transfer window. He signed Dango Ouattara, who was kind of viewed as the Brian Mbeumo replacement, and you know, he's not shown those levels just yet, but he's younger than Brian Mbeumo and might have the potential to get there, but he's definitely not the kind of ready-made package that Brian Mbeumo was by the time he'd left. And then we brought in Reece Nelson as well, who was kind of viewed as someone that can play across the front three, but he's only a lone player and his injury record is terrible, and that stood up in his time at Brentford. The big one was Igor Thiago, right? Because he was signed in February 2024, but he missed the first season due to injury, so basically didn't play any minutes. So he's practically a new signing. And as much of an unknown as Keith Andrews was to a certain degree, I know Keith Andrews hasn't this was his first job in management. I know he's been at Sheffield United and the Ireland youth set up as well, but at least Igor Thiago had got a resume and scored some goals on that resume. So he was a bit of an unknown, but again, in a similar way that we didn't know Keith Andrews would be able to kind of get us 5th in the table, we didn't know Igor Thiago was going to be able to score 16 goals by January. So that's helped. But, you know, week on week, and I've been saying this recently, and I was I still am a staunch defender of Thomas Frank, because I know that, you know, Spurs fans have completely turned on him now, and I think it's the vast majority of them want him to go. But, you know, I think maybe it's becoming more apparent week on week that the things that made Thomas, or at least in part the things that made Thomas Frank successful at Brentford, were the things behind him and the recruitment structure and the management structure, as opposed to Thomas Frank's ingenuity as a manager himself. But, you know, if that's the model, then players and managers should be able to come and go. And I feel like, you know, you're seeing that. And I'm already seeing, you know, one good half a season, and I'm already seeing Keith Andrews being touted for a move to a Big Six club. I saw Jamie Redknapp on Sky talking about it the other day. You know, big clubs will be looking at him. It's like, lads, come on. He's only been here for half a season. Give him a chance. You know what I mean?
You say that about the structure in place. Do you think that's kind of been key to his success, in that did he really fit that model? I mean, we didn't know, even from an Irish perspective, on what Keith would look like as a manager. We knew he was highly thought of as a set-piece coach, but even when he was Stephen Kenny's assistant or a part of the coaching team in the Ireland setup, I mean, as unsuccessful as a reign that was for Stephen Kenny, we didn't really hear much about Keith Andrews, because like sometimes you hear about the assistant managers behind the driving force. We didn't really know that. What we knew Keith from obviously was his playing career, and a lot of the time he was like on Irish TV. He was a big face of Irish football's punditry, whether it be on radio and TV, and so that was kind of the thing. Like, we knew him more for that. And also there was reports, I think one of our journalists over here, David Snade, reported that Pochettino was in talks for the Brentford job as well. So there was some names in the competition. What do you think it was his DNA to fit in within that Brentford structure that got him the position, and why he's so far been a success?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that, I mean, when Andrews got the job, he was kind of saying, in the same boat as us that we're in now, is in, you know, I couldn't picture of this being my first job in management, managing a Premier League club. But in terms of him kind of fitting the model, as he mentioned, he was a set-piece coach last season, and Brentford had the best net set-piece record in the league last season. I think we scored 16 and conceded 3, which is the best overall record. But in terms of him kind of fitting into that model, and the interview process that I think is well documented. There's a lot of reading on it. They've interviewed a few people. They called Keith Andrews in because they thought that he would be a good fit. He knows the players, and that's, I think, one of the key things. He knows the players. He has a relationship with the players, and it sounded like that, you know, they wouldn't have, or he wouldn't have got the green light without the kind of blessing from the players as well. But I think more than anything, what the appointment says is that Brentford value continuity, and they value people that can slip into the structure that they've already got without trying to rip up the playbook too much. I think that's why Thomas Frank was such a great success. The way that Brentford are run isn't typical in terms of how Premier League clubs are run these days. So you need someone that's going to come in, and whilst having some form of oversight on transfer policy and the recruitment structures in place, you know, at the end of the day, Keith Andrews will let the team know what we need, and the team will go out and find it, and then Keith Andrews will greenlight that transfer. But I do think, especially in modern football, I mean, so to bring up Spurs again, but you look at the mess that Spurs have been in over the last 5 years, and you look at their recruitment. You know, Brentford picked up Kevin Schade, Brian Mbeumo, and Johan Wissa for less than 20 million, less than 15 million pounds. You know, Spurs signed Richarlison for 50. So it's you need to be making smart decisions, especially with how cutthroat the Premier League is these days, and maybe having a manager who isn't a manager in a sense, and more of like a head coach. Maybe that's what Brentford were looking for, in terms of someone that can kind of just slip into that structure, already existing structure, and take strides within it. And I think so far Keith Andrews has done that.
Yeah, it's admirable stuff, really. And I think one of my favourite things about Brentford was that, you know, for the years that the midfield structure they had was costing something like less than 10 million between, what was it, Norgard, Janelt and Jensen.
Still is. Like, yeah, Jensen and Janelt are still playing together now. And
yeah, it's crazy, really, isn't it? Like, but obviously, like, it hasn't always been smooth sailing. You said that the festive period, you know, when they were in around 15th place in the league, I was seeing a bit of discontent online, and, you know, it's always hard to tell how much of it is just an online voice or was it a feeling around the ground. But there did seem to be a bit of dissatisfaction with the Brentford performances over a few weeks when they kind of were sliding down towards the relegation zone. Mm-hmm. What was that? Was that a real thing you could feel within the grounds, and kind of how's that turned around? I know, like, a lot of this has to be caveated with the Premier League is mental this year. You know,
yeah,
it's probably quite hard to tell where Brentford will actually finish, because as long as they're 1 or 2 points outside the top 4, they're probably only 3 or 4 points off 14th or 15th.
Well, I think the first thing to say is that, like, we need to kind of separate dissatisfaction and valid criticism over the appointment with people asking him to be sacked. I think, and we kind of had this chat on our pod. You need, like, the thing that Andrews doesn't have that Thomas Frank did have was credit in the bank, so that whenever we lost a game under Thomas Frank, there was no one really called it well. There was never any cries for him to be sacked because he was the guy that got us to the Premier League. Andrews doesn't have that, which is, you know, through no fault of his own, but he just doesn't have that kind of safety net.
Especially without the pedigree, like, he's always going to be
exactly.
Like, you know,
exactly. So yeah, without the pedigree, without the managerial resume to kind of back it up, and as you mentioned earlier, with all the names that we were linked with, I think Farioli is doing a great job at Porto. Pochettino is in the mix. There were some big names that Brentford were at least interviewing or had been reported with. So when you bring in to Keith Andrews, you know, people, and it baffled me at the time. I said, you know, we need to get behind that manager. We need to trust the guys that got us here, and these guys really make the wrong call. You have no right to be kind of questioning their decision making, because up until this point, their decision making has been, you know, relative to a relative extent, the best in England, in my opinion. So when Keith Andrews did lose a few games, though, there were, and I had concerns, and I remember emailing you about this interview and saying, the game where we played Leeds and we went to Arsenal and we played Spurs, like, on the face of it, those games, you know, if we lose away at Arsenal and Spurs, they're not awful, but when you take into account Spurs' record at home this season, I think they'd only beaten Burnley. They'd struggled against Wolves, who were still winless at the time. And we kind of went there to your old manager's place and rolled over a little bit. That didn't sit right with a lot of fans because, you know, to everyone there, that felt like a big game. It was like, right, well, we've made a decent start. Thomas Frank's gone to Spurs. Let's show him what we're about. Let's show him what he's missing. And we kind of rolled over. And then we played Leeds at home. And again, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't look like too bad of a point because you look at the unbeaten run that Leeds have gone on. I think they're unbeaten in 8 now after their win in the FA Cup. So again, that doesn't look like a terrible point. But my concerns were more over the playing style long term. It kind of looked like we were very one-dimensional and we weren't really showing the quality in the squad that I think we had at the start of the season against teams below us in the table. It was all well and good, you know, beating all these teams at home that we knew that we could beat. But it was when we were away from home, particularly against the teams in and around us, that I didn't see what the game plan was from Andrews. We were playing a lot for long throws. There was a game against Fulham as well, which also put him on the back foot earlier in the season, which is a massive game for the fans. And we, again, kind of scored a goal, didn't deserve it, sat back and just pumped long throws into the box, which was frustrating. However, since that Leeds game, a lot of Brentford fans have had to issue a lot of apologies because since then we've been incredible. The jump up the table that I mentioned from 5th to 15th and some of the performances in there, putting 4 past Bournemouth. Igor Thiago keeps scoring goals, but we're winning away from home, 4 against Everton, 3 against Sunderland. And in these games in particular, I've really started to see a little bit of Thomas Frank in Keith Andrews in that we can go long, we can be more direct, we can play set pieces, but we also can play the ball through the middle of the park, have the ball on the floor. And I think Brentford are number 1 for goals from fast breaks this season. That's the kind of exciting football that Brentford fans want to see. And that's the kind of exciting football that we can see in the long term now. I think that there were valid concerns over the playing style that need to be separated from those calling him for to be sacked, because I think that's just ludicrous. If you look at the job that he's done on paper, it's been excellent. But if you had concerns over the playing style, I know where they come from. That's kind of where they stem from.
I have to get on to obviously the Irish players in the team, and the first one I want to start on is Caoimhin Kelleher. I almost couldn't believe watching Ireland, and I did watch quite a bit of Liverpool before maybe the last 2 seasons, that Brentford were in the running and were able to get Caoimhin Kelleher. Now maybe you'd be able to tell me more how his season went, but from when I see him, definitely for Ireland, where he's been a bit of a hero for us really over the last couple of years, is you're looking at a league where a lot of the big teams like Man United, who ended up getting a goalkeeper but had that big issues for a long time. I think Chelsea can definitely do with a goalkeeper. Yeah. It looks like Tottenham, who we've talked about a lot today, could do with a goalkeeper, and maybe even many more than that, and Brentford end up getting him. And I can't tell you how well he's done for Brentford this season, because I've only caught a handful of games in that he's been very good in, but he's had an excellent two or 3 years at Liverpool, been excellent for Ireland. And how's his Brentford career gone so far?
I think it was definitely a bit of a coup. I think going into the season, and because kind of from his performances at Liverpool in cup finals and whenever he's had to kind of deputise for Alisson, everyone's always said, you know, Caoimhin Kelleher is good enough to be playing for a Big Six club. So for us to kind of get him, and at the time, in my opinion, massively upgrade on Mark Flecken, who was another reason why Brentford were being touted for relegation last season, when Mark Flecken's time at Brentford was definitely questionable. We all saw it as a massive upgrade, and so far he's been, 67% save ratio for penalties in the Premier League so far this season, which is mental. I think he's got the highest save percentage in Europe in terms of all competitions this season from the penalty spot. But I think just in terms of shot stopping in general, I think he's a big upgrade on Mark Flecken, it has to be said. The only area of weakness that you could say that he has in his game is that he's not the best with his feet compared to someone like David Raya or Mark Flecken. But Brentford's style of play this season has not really relying on the goalkeeper being good with his feet and playing out from the back. We are more direct than we used to be. And in terms of finding Thiago, he always manages to do that. If it's Thiago, if it's Sharda, he's just the intangibles that you can't measure in football. Having a goalkeeper like Caoimhin Kelleher behind the defence is going to be doing so much for them, because whenever there's a penalty, there's actually a chance that, or a really good chance that he's going to save it. And when players are going through one-on-one or their shots from outside the box, he's looked really competent there as well. So, yeah, in my opinion, he's been a revelation for Brentford so far. And seeing him do the business for Ireland as well, I'm sure you guys are buzzing.
Oh yeah, like I mean, if we go to the penalties in these playoffs that we have coming up, I think there'd be a bit more confidence heading into them. I find it kind of crazy that Liverpool didn't use him last season in the G when they did go to penalties, because especially for Ireland, like he saved some really big penalties. He saved a penalty against Mbappe last year in the Champions League. Saved a penalty against Ronaldo for Ireland as well recently, and you know, like, we obviously all love him. I'm surprised to hear you say about his distribution, because I thought that was something he was quite decent at. Maybe he's more of an upgrade on other Irish goalkeepers, and it's different when you get into Premier League standards. But as well, I wanted to ask you about Nathan Collins, because Nathan Collins is someone, he does split opinion in the Irish fan base. It's because, you know, not a lot of Ireland fans or Brentford fans obviously in Ireland, so there's not everyone watching every game, but he seems to play very well for Brentford. When I watch him, he seems quite highly regarded. He's almost someone you see online who does get touted by, you know, big six fans for a move to their club. But it's quite surprising for me, because I normally find him quite inconsistent and disappointing for Ireland. How is he for Brentford? Is he like a top player for Brentford, or does he have those kind of flaws in his game as well?
Well, I've watched him play for Ireland and I've watched him play for Brentford, and they're different, very, very, very different. So you're not going mad thinking that he's playing really well for Brentford and playing pretty poorly for Ireland. But I mean, we always said about Nathan Collins when we signed him in the season that he came from Wolves, he was either really, really good or really, really bad, and there was kind of no in between. And then the season just gone, he was probably, definitely our best defender, one of our best players. He was Beckenbauer-esque at time, honestly. His distribution, it was everything you wanted from a modern-day centre-back. He would defend his box really well. He was really comfortable on the ball. He'd be able to break the lines with passing. And then this season, so that's like his journey. He was really, really good, really, really bad, then really, really good for a whole season. And then this season kind of returned to that first stint in a Brentford shirt. But in recent weeks, and in tandem with the team's success and in tandem with Keith Andrews' success as well, over the last kind of 5 or 6 games, he's been one of our best players again. And I feel like he has got a competent centre-half partner to play with now in Christopher Ajer, and their chemistry on the pitch looks really good. But there were people kind of questioning whether the armband was weighing heavy on him, because, you know, Jordan Henderson comes through the door. It seems like a natural kind of choice for a captain.
That's definitely the debate in Ireland circles as well. He's still remained captain even when Seamus Coleman's come in, but it's been about dealing with the pressure.
But you can't, you know, no one knows whether that's the case or not, right? But I mean, as I mentioned, since the Leeds game, he's been one of our best players, and he leads by example on the pitch as well. I like Nathan Collins. I think he's got everything you want, or everything you need to be like a top modern day centre half. It's just showing it on a more consistent basis than he has done in a Brentford shirt so far, because, as I mentioned, terribly inconsistent one season, then really, really good, and back to kind of inconsistent this season. So for him, and I guess that's what separates the kind of good players from the best players, is the ones that do it week in, week out, and the ones that turn up when they want to, or turn up when, or just don't turn up enough. But yeah, I think with a bit of refinement to his game and a bit more confidence in his play, I think Nathan Collins can be a really top centre half.
Yeah, and I suppose maybe people on the show are sick of me bringing him up, and my point with Collins is that I do rate him very highly. The point where I always get at him is because I'm always kind of frustrated, because I know what a good player he can be, but I think there's also points to be made that the Ireland system is not as comfortable for him, even though he is, you know, this big marauding centre half, that he's maybe more comfortable when he's given more freedom to run up the pitch and kind of break the lines with his passing, which he doesn't get to do with Ireland, which funnily enough has there's been the tireless debate for us to play him in midfield, given we don't really have any midfielders for Ireland at the moment, but I'm very anti that. And it's coming back up at the moment with Josh Cullen's injury. But look, I'm going to wrap up there, but at the last point, I just want to ask you, what are your expectations for Brentford for this season? Where do you think you are going to finish, and where do you hope to really end up?
I think, at the start of the season, I would have taken 17th. I think most Brentford fans would have taken 17th. But I've said kind of consistently throughout the season, especially now the away form's turned around, I think we're seeing a squad that can aim higher than that. The dreaded E word, European qualification, would be like the natural next step for a club like Brentford, and teams in and around Brentford, your Bournemouths, Fulhams, Brightons. I think that is the next step, because you can't compete with the rest of the league, at least financially. But yeah, it's I don't know. The answer is I don't know, Dylan. It's the Premier League seems crazier this year than it has been before. But I think with, it looks like the club are looking to strengthen again in January. We've just signed Kay Furo as a backup to Igor Thiago. And bar any injuries, which is something Andrews hasn't really had to deal with this season, bar any injuries, I think we are looking at a squad that can play against anyone and on their day give anyone a good go. I'd love an FA Cup run. I really would love an FA Cup run, and we have the squad to be able to rotate and not worry too much. I think the squad that we put out yesterday against Sheffield Wednesday, you're looking at the 1 to 11, it's like, well, that's another competent Premier League team that we've just put out, and we've changed 11 players. And that's the kind of depth that Keith Andrews has now, which is weird going into the season when you're talking about losing all of these key players. But it's he's been blessed with not having any injuries. Having said that, Thomas Frank's injury crisis at Tottenham is mounting up. So maybe there's a link there. I don't know, but yeah, I think bar any injuries, if the club look to strengthen in January, I think the sky's the limit this season. We can go on and do something really special if we play like the way that we have been in the last 5 games. Hopefully a European place, and hopefully a cup run as well. That would be my ideal situation.
Well, I hope to see us anyways. Michael, thanks so much for joining us. You can find Michael at the Ealing Road podcast. And yeah, best of luck for the rest of the season. Cheers.
I probably wasn't even speaking to them. They weren't speaking to me. It's probably what my wife does to me when I'm in trouble, and she gets a better husband in the end.
Well, listen, we've won. We shouldn't be here. Little old shells, as people call us. Everyone hates us, I think. We're in the division for another year, and we're in a final. Hey, it doesn't get any better. Well done. Thanks, Tony.
There's wars absolutely everywhere. I'd happily be a barista.
Well, listen, the guys are in there singing songs. You just want to be careful what you play.
So if this doesn't work out, you might see me in a coffee shop. It's the greatest league in the world.
I don't think I go that far, but it's great to see the buzz. The grounds are more or less packed every week, Damien.
I would go that far.
And we're back. Thanks very much for Michael Johnston for joining me this week for the interview. What an absolute gent. What just a lovely chat.
He really carried that chat as well.
Yeah, I heard that poor interviewing skills really, but thanks for Michael for carrying that. For those of you waiting for Fergie Watch, we will be on to Evan Ferguson's antics and what he's been up to in Rome this week. But first we're going to get on to some transfer talk, because we're in the silly season now, James.
Yes, the window that is remarkably hard to get deals done. From a Celtic point of view anyway, seems impossible.
Yeah, bring it back to Celtic, why don't you? I feel like it's a huge transfer window because of the connotations of March. Like everything we're going to be looking at is going to be through the lens of what this Czech Republic game. So we're going to be thinking who's going to get and move.
Well, everyone's trying to get in that shop window for March just because a couple injuries, and we know how small our national pool is. A couple injuries and you may be considered into the squad.
Now, someone who's not really going to be in contention for a starting place, barring some crazy unfortunate injuries.
Don't jinx it.
Yeah, Jesus, no. But it's Gavin Bazunu who's made kind of an odd loan move to Stoke City, which it looks positive from
failing upwards,
definitely. So he's moving up the table. Stoke City are in 6th to Southampton are in 13th. He kind of fell out of favour, which has been a bit of a trend in his career so far, albeit how short it has been, that he's been in favour for a short amount of time and then quickly dropped after that. Stoke do have a purchase option on this deal.
What I think is 7 million, is it? Maybe upwards?
So I actually haven't seen the figure.
I think it's close to 7 or maybe upwards of 10 even. I don't know.
What do you make of this? This one's kind of gotten a lot of traction, this deal, because Bazunu has been poor for a number of years now, and if you look at his numbers, his underlying numbers, he's rated as the worst post-shot expected goal value, which is generally the stat looked at to rate how good a goalkeeper is, or definitely the easiest one is. Obviously there is caveats with everything, but he's ranked at the lowest in the league, but he's definitely capable of being a good goalkeeper. And he did have similar numbers when he was going into the Premier League a few years ago with Southampton as well. But hopefully this is it could be another move up, and it's his consistency that he really has to improve, I think.
Yeah, I think we all know the quality Gavin has. Some of his highlight reels in terms of how good saves he's made. His highlight reel is brilliant, but it's just kind of getting that consistency. And I think that stat is fair enough, and it does show Bazunu has been really poor this season in the Championship. But for me, I think he just needs that change of scenery from Southampton. He obviously had that loan at Standard Liège, and I don't think I don't know how he got on there. I don't know what his post-shot XG value in the Belgium League was, so I can't really comment. But from my perspective, like Southampton have been really poor for a number of years now. Obviously, like that kind of shock of going up to the Premier League, with, like the defence Southampton had, the number of shots he was facing every game, like just kind of killed his confidence. He was obviously eventually dropped that season and just hasn't really recovered from that. And for me, I think he just does need that change of scenery. There's obviously lots of Irish guys at Stoke, and I think we all know Gavin's quality, and like he, in an ideal world, he's challenging Kelleher for that number 1 jersey, which I think he is capable of. So hopefully kind of this move to Stoke gets him back into a bit of form ahead of March, and he's playing consistently.
Yeah, and I think Gavin Cooney made the point, and also shout out Longford, Gavin Cooney, but he is only turning 24 like next month as well. There's so much time. Like he's only really a babbing in goalkeeper terms anyways, but I feel like he too is unfairly critiqued, because you don't see Mark Travers getting this criticism, because Mark Travers has settled to be a number 2 goalkeeper. He's happy to be a number 2 goalkeeper.
And even if you compare it to Kelleher, where was Kelleher at 24? Like I think he was just he's 26 now, so he was probably still kind of second, even third choice Liverpool. Like Bosun, who's played like ridiculous amount of games. I think Gavin Cooney said he's like maybe the 4th or 5th most played games as a goalkeeper, and even in the Premier League, I think. So like he has so many years left in his career, and he has that experience of playing football from such a young age, which, as we've seen with a lot of like the best players in the world, is only a positive thing.
It's not quite Stoke alone anymore there, but they actually have a bit of an Irish team going on since Jonathan Walters was made their sporting director a couple of years ago, and it looks like they're kind of targeting a lot of Irish players. Obviously they've got Lawal, who we talked about earlier, and it looks like they're looking to bring in Louis Barry on loan as well, which he's just returned to Aston Villa, so that could be an interesting move for him. I'm worried that we don't have an awful lot of time left, James, but is there any other transfers that you want to point out that have kind of been interesting over the break or recently?
A couple of League of Ireland transfers anyway, like Lewis Temple going from Shells to Bolton for 100 grand. Caoimhin obviously to Lincoln, which we're all
we were expecting that
well aware of. Yeah,
just the worst kept secret in football, really.
Yeah, and then another former Rovers guy, Neil Ferrugia, going from Barnsley to Dundee United, kind of in that left wing back role, which
didn't really work out for him there.
No, it's you're going from like I know that this debate has been had. I've seen in online discourse that these guys going from Rovers or going from League of Ireland to League One are just not stepping up, but like at the same time, League One is the English football period in general is just so intense, so competitive, that if you don't kind of impress within that first 6 months, you're just gone, you're discarded. So it's a very difficult environment to improve in when you're maybe still developing in your career. And as I've said on many times this podcast, I think getting out of that English bubble, especially going from League of Ireland to like another league, I think just not going to England, that English bubble, is probably the best move for everyone. And he's obviously stepped out of that bubble now, gone to Dundee United, which under Jim Goodwin, under Irishman, you'd hope he'll do well. Armstrong Okoflex as well, going from Botev Plovdiv, Bulgarian side, to Levski Sofia. He's actually had a really good season this year, 7 goals in 14 games, was very highly regarded when he was younger. Scored a couple of goals for 21s in their qualification campaign a couple of years ago, and yeah, just talented footballer, so hopefully he kind of keeps that up. In terms of guys maybe needing a loan, I think we were talking about this earlier, like the likes of Alex Murphy and Carl Heffernan at Newcastle, just for the 21s in particular. I think it's probably best that those guys do get loan moves.
The Alex Murphy one it was interesting. Like he's gotten 1 or 2 appearances for Newcastle, I think, in cups this year, and for all purposes has done well. And I think there's been talk Eddie Howe wants to keep him in around the first team, but I think there's danger of him becoming stunted if he doesn't get a loan move.
I think
soon.
Newcastle are pretty poor from what I've seen from their fan media as well. They've been giving out about Eddie Howe giving players chance in their first team, young players like.
Yeah, I suppose the big news is the breaking of the League of Ireland record, with Shell's bringing in Oren Casey from Cliftonville.
Yeah, breaking the League of Ireland record set almost 20 years ago, obviously, when Eamon Zaid moved from Bray Wanderers to Drogheda for 80 grand, a transfer we obviously remember well 20 years ago. And yeah, Shells in general, I think they are kind of my tip to really go and challenge Rovers this year. Obviously, my main reason is just Jamestown analytics, and just you look at Hearts this year, you look at every other club Tony Bloom owns, they just seem to just be able to win leagues and stuff. So that's my main reason.
It's hilarious with the whole Jamestown thing, because they could be making like Oren Casey doesn't sound like a whole it's a League of Ireland transfer coming up from the north, but everyone's still putting the Jamestown lens on it, which it very well could be. Like there could be the analytics that it's like oh, he's worth the money, you know. But I love the discourse that everything that Shells do now is like Jamestown is in the same sentence.
Yeah, well, I think Vesselspiel, Norris, and the Swedish guy that brought in Malil Lundgren, 24-year-old midfielder, they're all
Good
kind
pronunciation.
Thanks. Yeah, they're all Jamestown signings. Obviously, they brought in Jack Henry Francis, Sean Moore, two very good young players in the last year as well. So, like, Shells finished the season really well at the end of last year. And they would be my pick for kind of who've won the transfer window so far. I think Derry are definitely up there, but I would have broader concerns about kind of how their squad is structured with the number of kind of players over the age of 30 and a lot of lads on high wages.
You wouldn't have Galway for winning the transfer window, would you?
No. Yeah. I think they're losers of the transfer window.
I think the big discourse is going to be over Jake Mulroney's transfer to the Shamrock Rovers. I think everyone's going to be watching that.
He plays a wing back? Or
I think so. Yeah.
I wouldn't play him. I think he's better maybe as one of the players behind the striker. Like,
it's just going to be the discourse of the season, though, I feel like. But
yeah, I just don't.
Talking about discourse of the season, Evan Ferguson. It's not looking good. It
was looking good for a couple of weeks there.
And then he got injured. So.
Yeah. I wish we had a podcast where we could have raved about him for a week.
Yeah. He's up to 3 goals now. Like he's threatening to get his shooting boots on. Like that's the way I'd put it. But Gasparini, the manager of Roma, he just hates him. Like, he really just hates him. There was one game he came in and he did really well and scored in, and Gasparini didn't do an interview after the game because he wanted.
Gasparini seems just like a mad character,
isn't it? Like,
why is every Italian football manager so like just extreme and just crazy?
I think the Italian media like James Horncastle was talking about the last day on a podcast. It might have been Libero or something, I can't remember. One of the million podcasts.
They're all like ticking time bombs. Like,
yeah, and he was saying that he refused to do any interviews because I think they're like sporting director or owner, director of football, or one of them who's in charge of transfers was talking about how difficult it was to try and get like a striker signing over the line, and basically Gasparini just keeps throwing Ferguson under the bus so we can get.
Could it be said it's kind of a thing maybe to motivate him?
No, I don't think so. I think he just wants a new striker.
Yeah,
he's injured at the moment. I think he might be in contention to be back in for their game on Sunday
because his performances over the last 5 games have actually been quite good, and he has scored like.
But Gasparini keeps giving him backhanded compliments every time he does score. It's an odd one.
Yeah, it's a weird one because like we're going to be in a case here where maybe he gets recalled, but Dovbyk is out injured for 2 months, so and then the Roma sporting director, I know Gasparini's kind of seems to be in a power struggle there with the sporting director and the director of football, but the sporting director has said that they're, like, all things considered, going to keep Fergie till the end of the season most likely.
Yeah. They brought in teenage striker Robinho Vaz from Marseille on loan. He's only 18 years old, but it's going to be 25 million to buy option. You imagine he might become number 1 choice. I think there's a real danger of Ferguson becoming number 3 choice. I know Daniel Malin's coming in, and he's not exactly a striker, but he can play there.
Roma have played like Baldanzi at striker.
I think Baldanzi's going out on loan.
He's a 10 now, but I mean, like, Gasparini's been flexible with who he's played up there. Like, he's played Dybala up there. He's played guys that aren't natural 9s up there, so I could see him doing that with Malin.
Right, we are running out of time. We are going to be back with Ferguson chat next week. Of course we are. We're going to be back on Tuesday at 2 to 3, not Monday at 3 to 4. Tuesday at 2 to 3 here.
3 to 4 on Tuesday, no?
No, 2 to 3, buddy.
I've been put rightly in my place there.
Here on Flirt 101.3 FM. Of course, if you're listening on any other platforms, the Spotify's, the YouTubes, whatever of this world, maybe give us a 5-star review, or don't just give us any review. Like, I don't know.
Or subscribe to YouTube if you feel extremely generous.
Yeah, do leave us a comment. We've had a few essays on there recently.
A lot of opposition comments. Maybe we should get some Irish.
We need to defend because we have a lot of Czech people commenting on our stuff now. But James, before we go, I'm going to you have 10 seconds to do this. You were going to do a list of who's going to be a big 2026. I just want one name, and it's not allowed to be Mason Melia.
Okay, I'm going to say Jacob Devaney was outstanding for the Ireland 21.
That's enough from you, James. Goodbye. Right, we're passing on to the next show. Anyways, I've been Dylan Hudson. It's been James Ffrench. This has been Ireland Radar here on Flirt FM 101.3 FM. And as I said, Tuesday at 2 or 3. Conor, thank you for your slot. We're going to play a song by CMAT. It is ready and it's coming up next.
Waiting for adventure so